Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my opinion. And today I'll be talking about the T10. And day two of the T10 has ended today, so six matches have been played. And so far, the chasing team has won in all of the six games. And there was a reason why I was kind of thinking whether the T10 would be a good video idea. And it's for a few reasons. And the first reason is because now it's been around for a few years. It's been around maybe even since I was in year 9, and but the thing about it is that it hasn't really been advertised that much is one thing, but even before that, just I haven't really watched enough of the T10 to really be able to relate with the league and be able to kind of say the ins and outs of the league. And I'm saying this because now there's lockdown in the UK, and so that means that there's online school. And so the reason why I'm able to watch the T10 now is because I'm at home, so in the middle, like between lessons and stuff, and when because I'm older than before and I have like free periods, so I can still like watch the games then. But I'm saying before, like at school, it would effectively run through the whole schooling week. And so I would be at school most of the time. And so I wouldn't really be able to watch like, many of the games. And especially when in my old school, I actually used to commute for 1.5 hours each way. And I got home at about 5. And so by the time I kind of, did everything when I went home, and I got ready to watch the game, a large quantity of the game would be gone. And obviously, I would have missed the first two games in the day, like considering the same timing. So one starts at 12 o'clock, the next starts at, I think, 2:30, and the next starts at 4:30. And so I would miss about 2 and 3 quarters of the action, and so I wouldn't really be able to get a good outlook of the league. And because of that, it's kind of like I've not really been able to relate with what's been going on for the past few seasons. Of course, I saw the Mohamed Shehzad 74 of 16, which is just incredible, and I'll get to him in a moment. But I'm saying that apart from like a few games here and there and a few instances here and there, I haven't really been able to connect with the league. And this is something that obviously, me going to school through the week, but then a point that I mentioned briefly about the advertising, and especially over, the last couple of seasons, it really hasn't got the advertising that, or even from the start, really. It hadn't got the advertising that it really deserves because, it's such an exciting format, and a lot of people think this as well, the best chance for cricket to like get into the Olympics. And T10, with how engaging it is, it's just so fun to watch. And so it's a very, you can bowl 10 overs in about an hour, and so the game would be finished in with only I believe it's a 10-minute turnover, so the game would be finished in about the time it takes to complete an innings in T20 cricket. And so 3 games in a day, it would be something that's very good over, let's say, a 6-day period, like they're doing in the UAE right now. It's the 28th of January to the 6th of February, so about 8 days or something. But yeah, it's a very good tournament, and I feel that it should be advertised more. And by advertising us not only about the people, just to viewers around the world, and just even the squads actually came out, I believe just before, like maybe a day before the actual tournament started. And I was actually looking on the ESPN Cricket Info page to see if, like on the series links, whether it would come up, and it didn't come up for a while, even though it was just a few days before it would actually start. And not only to us as fans, but I feel like to players of other countries, I just feel like it isn't something that has been put of, an importance. And I'm not saying this in a bad way, but it's like, it's a bad comparison, this, but you look at the IPO, and it's kind of like something where it's a prominent fixture in the cricketing calendar, and every player makes it a point that they want to go and play in the IPL to get the money, to get the fame, to get the exposure, and embrace the occasion. And IPO auctions, I mean, they really affect a player in their life. And I'm not saying that they would feel like really sad if they don't get picked, but I'm saying that getting picked and for any of the IPO sides, it immediately puts you in the spotlight, and people will remember you for being in that squad. And it may work well and it may not work well, and you may not even get a game anyway, but it's just something that it is an aspiration of every cricketer, no doubt, who can go to the IPL, that it is a big part of their cricketing career that they want to get exposure to the IPL and in a best case scenario play in it and succeed. And I understand it was a terrible comparison. I mean, comparing the T10 and the IPL was very unfair, but I'm saying this is because one thing that you get in the IPL is because it is it's a prominent, as I said, prominent fixture in the cricketing calendar. A lot of players, and they kind of make it a point, as I said, I'm basically repeating myself, they make it a point that they want to be available for a season, the best case scenario. And the problem with the T10 is that it's in the midst of, and especially it's made it harder with the whole the bubble and everything. You look at Pakistan. So in the first couple of seasons, I would say that the Pakistani players were, yes, there are the West Indian T20 specialists, but the Pakistani players were really kind of, I thought, the mainstays of building a team around and really marketing that league. Because this is when the PSL was played, in two of those seasons. I believe the PSL was played in Dubai. It was played, in Dubai until, recently, but I'm saying that at the point that the T10 league started, the PSL was being played in Dubai. So I felt like Pakistani players were, big parts of the T10 league at the start, because it still kind of had that connection. I'm not saying that Pakistan don't have a connection with the UAE now, but I'm saying that they kind of relied on them more. And so the fact that this tournament was happening in the UAE, it automatically served as a marketability for Pakistani players. And that's why, as I said, it was the Pakistani players who I thought first the teams were kind of centered around. Whereas then in recent seasons, the West Indian players have come in, and I thought that real turning point was in the one season where there was a Northern Warriors with all the West Indian stars. It was Darren Sammy, Andre Russell, Nicholas Pruitt, and I believe they once hit 177, I think. It may have been that, and in 10 overs. And so, yeah, it's just that team kind of, I thought that was really establishing the point that the West Indian stars were going to dominate that league. And I'm saying this because you look at the fact that the Pakistani players would have been available, or even though, the ones playing in the test series against South Africa now, you wouldn't really say that they are T10 material. In fact, a lot of the batsmen you wouldn't really say are. And despite the fact that there are still Pakistanis featuring in this T10 league, but what I'm trying to say is that it's just the marketability thing. What I'm saying is the players that everyone sees, the really high profile players in the country, like Babar Azam, Shaheen Afridi, those kind of people, they're playing a test series, and so they're not playing in the T10 league. And so that means that the real high profile players who are playing international cricket aren't playing the league, which immediately you would want players who are playing international cricket to play in your league. And I'm not only Pakistan, because I said Pakistan because they were kind of the players that formed that were, I believe, essential to kind of the start, like the first two seasons of the tournament. Then you look at teams like India, Australia, England. In the English people have had a few stints here and there. We look at India and Australia, and South Africa as well with the international players. they it's not really a thing that's prioritized. And you could say two things about this in the you know what, I'm actually going to get to including different players, like more players in a bit. But it's the fact is that it isn't something that is very like the players from those countries and the boards themselves and the people who make the schedules, they don't really kind of seem to really think that the T10 should be something that these players should consider like taking part in. And I feel like it's one thing that's barring the league from gaining the advertising that it deserves, because it's a very entertaining league, and just the batsmen hitting sixes all around the place. And yeah, it's just really good to watch. I've been watching it this year, and in the first 2 days that I have watched it, and the second day is ended today, and it's probably the most that I have watched. As like this is kind of a phase of these 2 days where I've been able to formulate an opinion about it after watching quite like a few matches, where I can actually really say, as far as this season is concerned, of how like the things are going. And yeah, that's my point on advertising. And another thing is because it's a squads, and I'm saying this because so T10, the format, it favors the batsman. And so you see all these West Indian players, and there are some high profile players in the tournament, and there are some high profile bowlers here. But the thing is, this tournament gives the opportunity to new players as well. And now that's a good thing. And another thing where it's kind of, it seems good, but and it isn't the players' fault. You kind of will realize with the nature of the tournament, you may not experience much real success, like kind of notable success. And I mean this. So I once saw Shane Watson get out when he was playing the T10. I saw him get out for 14 or 5, and Michael Slater said, well, you've done your job in this tournament. If as an opening batsman, if you score 14 or 5, then you've given your team like some momentum. And so if you look at that, it's kind of like an opening batsman could go on and score 14 or 5 for the entire tournament, and they would have done their job. And so these younger players, like, and getting to the bowling, the bowlers do get hurt. And so if you go for anything less than 10 and over, it's brilliant. And so some of them are able to execute their skills better than others. But the problem is usually these are the more high profile bowlers, and the young, like the more inexperienced bowlers, they generally find it difficult, and especially the West Indian players tend to target them more. And so, for example, what I'm saying is this. So, play another this batsman that you had no idea about, and he came in and he scored, you thought, okay, he's hitting a few sixes. And then, he just goes 14 or 5. So it isn't, you don't have like enough time to really see what the player is about in a very crude format, because everything happens so fast. And in the bowling, you kind of think, poor guy's getting smashed around, but what can you do? It's T10, and their inexperience, it does show with the fact that they're not able to hit their areas. And I'm going to talk about the general standard of bowling in the T10 in a bit, because I've out of what I've seen, especially from this season, I have seen that it has been a prominent factor. And yeah, that's just the thing, that the lack of raffinity in some parts of the squad, it kind of it provides lesser known players, with all due respect, with an opportunity. But and some have proven to be very good surprises. But I'm saying that a lot of the times in the end, especially the bowlers, they get hit around, they get nervous, understandably. And because in your first kind of real, advertise with this much, this is probably the most advertisement that they would have got. And bowling in a format that doesn't favor bowlers as your first kind of gig at being really advertised at a global level, it isn't really ideal. And so their inexperience does show, and they get hit around. And that's the reason why. It's just the lack of affinity in the squads. And So I wouldn't really be able to say much about them because there would be players that I don't know, and even then I wouldn't really be able to kind of, coming into my third point, what can you possibly say tactically? I mean, it's a batsman's game, T10. You go out there and you whack, just whack the ball around, and the bowlers get hurt, and that's pretty much it. And it's just sheer entertainment. And there's nothing really much that you can say, and feel you just look at the strokes that the batsmen are playing in awe, and then feel sorry for the bowlers, and just have a great time in general. And that's basically the T10 format. And with all these things, I kind of was thinking, would this really be a great video idea? And I first thought no, but I was thinking to make, a video on the T10, like points in the, so day 2 is ended, and of what I've seen. And out of what I've seen, it's just the T10 it's shown why it's the most, I would say. I mean, as far as entertaining, it's such a fast-paced, entertaining form of cricket, which if we thought T20 would make, like other people who aren't cricket fans like cricket, T10 is just something else. And it almost, especially, let's say if there's someone who's just trying to get into cricket and they see the T10, it would kind of make them devalue bowling, because honestly, just like they're running in just to get hit around, and you have even more respect for the people who, like, you appreciate good bowling in any format, but just like one good over can immediately make the batting side feel uncomfortable, and it will just give the bowling captain so much more relief that it's kind of been one over unscathed. And because the problem in the format is that, let's say you have one strike bowler and they bowl 2 overs out of the 10, and so they just bowl 2 overs out of the 10, and 8 overs is plenty for these West Indian hitters to go and clobber the ball around and make up for the 2 overs that, this strike bowler has bowled. And even then, if they're really unlucky, if they bowl the first over with, I believe it's a 1 over power play, and then you can take another over for a power play whenever you want. So if this other team, if the batting team takes, has both power play overs available when you bowl, then you may even get hit for 20 in 2 overs, which isn't that bad for T10. But if the others get hit for about 12s or 15s, then it powers on, and in the end, your effort kind of gets nullified. And that is the issue that there may be. And so it's very important that you kind of have at least 2 players that you can bank on as bowlers. But even then, it's not something that's talked about too much, because everyone's going to get hurt and everyone just enjoys the sixes as viewers. And yeah, that's on like how it's going. And as I said, it's the 6 in each of the 6 games, the chasing team has won in all of them. And about the highlights that I have seen, as in by highlights I mean, so today I saw one of the most ridiculous moments I've seen in cricket, when there's actually there's someone, I believe is called Ansari, I think Munis Ansari, I think that's his first name, and like an Ansari's surname, and he's an experienced campaigner who's from Oman, and he bowls like Malinga. And in day 1, he had a very good return, figures of 2 for 11 in his 2 overs, and his second over was more slower than his first one. It kind of seemed like it kind of seemed like he was trying to get through his second over, because he had to clearly try harder in his second over than the first. But he got Karen Pollard out for 2 off 6 with an excellent Yorker, and I just felt like the Karen Pollard was kind of taken aback by just facing that kind of bowling. Because yes, he plays alongside Malinga, or at least he played alongside Malinga. The Mumbai Indians is more Malinga having retired from franchise cricket. And the thing is with Ansari's action, it's kind of abrupt, which makes it harder to play. With Malinga, he runs in and you can tell he's going to do this, and because you've seen the same thing so many times. With Ansari, even the run-up, it isn't that fluid, and he really stops, and it's a very kind of a lumberjack swivel, where he has to really swivel the whole way across and just get his arms through. And That's why it seemed to be very awkward to face, and he bowled a brilliant Yorker to Karen Pollard and was plumb LBW. And yeah, I felt very happy for him, and he got figures of 2 for 11. And he did look, he struggled today when the Pune Devils are playing the Kalandars, who were playing for the first time in this tournament. And there was this one ridiculous moment where he bowled, and I believe it was his first ball, he bowled a leg stump full toss, which Tom Banton tried to reverse sweep. He missed it and he got bowled, and it was a no ball. And if you actually saw it, it was just one. I don't know what Tom Banton was thinking, because he was playing all these orthodox shots and getting runs and getting boundaries going along very nicely. I say very nicely. He actually ended with we got out one off Ansari in the same over, I think, for 45 of 18, and so yeah, that's how well he was going. And he was getting so much purchase as far as boundaries are concerned with playing orthodox shots. And he tried this off a bowler who's already very awkward to face, and you know that the Yorker is gonna be his go-to ball. And so yeah, it was very confusing to see. But then again, I mean, luckily for him, I mean, and he deserved that luck because he's batting brilliantly, and it was a no ball. Then he hits Ansari for 6 over kind of a mid wicket. So yeah, I would say it was in the mid wicket region. And so then Ansari came back and he bowled a length ball, and I thought it was actually a pretty decent ball. He got it to rise a bit, and Tom Banton, if he just tried to, he didn't really get enough on the ball, just went straight up in the air, and Ansari caught it, and it was, he still gave a lot of runs in that over, 18 runs, because Shardul Khan, it was a short ball on the legs, leg stump, and Shardul Khan, pulled it away. It was a very nice shot for 6, and so it was a very mixed bag over, but it was an entertaining over to watch. It was 1 for 18 in 1 over. And then I'm trying to think of, yes, there was I couldn't watch the second game, unfortunately, of the day, but I watched a bit of and actually a large portion of the final game, and I think it was can't remember what his name was. The person who got Chris Gill out was a brilliant Yorker, and he only bowled 1 over in the game, and I think it was the first one. I think it was Umaid, and he got Chris Gill out, and he got someone else out, and the person he got out was kind of not. I mean, I didn't really get the shot. It was kind of just a textbook ball, and it was a really poke prod kind. Not even. He just put the bat like this, and then that was it really. So it was a pretty convenient dismissal, but he still bowled. He bowled 1 over, and he got 2 for 8, which is in T10. It's brilliant, even if you bowl 1 over. And it was I believe the Deccan Gladiators versus Team Abu Dhabi, who were playing for the first time in this tournament, and it clearly was a time. It was something to forget for them, because Chris Gill got out early, and the top score in the innings was 25, and they got about 95 for 9, I think, and they couldn't really get the innings really flowing at all. And so the openers for Deccan Gladiators actually took their time in T10 standards, because I believe they were on 43 in almost 5 overs, but they played their fair share of strokes. And I feel that one advantage that Team Abu Dhabi have, and also the fact that because of this, they made this. They didn't make this task easy by any means, and it's because of their 4 quick bowlers. They have Usman Khan Shinwari, Naveenul Haq, James Overton, and also Obed McCoy, who can also bowl quickly. And I thought he bowled very well, because didn't bowl that quickly, but he bowled some bouncers into the pitch, and it really made it, especially in his first over, especially after bowling a no ball, he really made it uncomfortable for Mohammad Shehzad and Cameron Delport to get away. And so I definitely thought that they did all that they could in kind of slowing down the scoring rate for a while. This is all in T10 standards, but especially defending 96 to get in 10 overs. I thought that with their bowling attack and also, the brilliant Yorker man, Rohan Mustafa, he bowls with his cap, and now Niall O'Brien mentioned that he has a Yorker that's as good as anyone in the world, and he's a spinner actually, and he bowled a brilliant Yorker, and yeah, I thought that they could use him as well. So that's five bowlers who you can put faith in, and so even if they score about 105, 110, and with considering how close to give up, I still wouldn't say that. I still thought the Deccan Gladiators were going to win, but they needed two of three in the end, and the bowler who was bowling the last over was on a hat trick, and Narayan edged it and in the ball afterwards, and it went for four, meaning the Deccan Gladiators won the game. But I feel that they can take a solace from their bowling attack, because I actually feel that it's the best one out of all the attacks that I've seen so far, because of simply every bowler seems to be kind of trustworthy to, I was going to say execute their skills, but just not get hit around that much is the better option. And Rohan Mustafa with his Yorkers is very awkward to play. And Usman Khan Shinwari, I've always liked him when he's bowling. He's a very good bowler, and his run up is actually 35 yards, and so it's 13 yards longer than a standard, like the length of a standard cricket pitch, which is 22 yards. And I really thought that he bowled well, and especially Karen Pollard, I fist bumped him because of the short balls that he was bowling. Again, bowling short balls into the pitch was something that was working, and I feel that, I would say other teams could try and kind of use that in future games, but I feel like no other team would be as well equipped to employ just bowling to some kind of a plan in such a crude format as much as Team Abu Dhabi are. So yes, things didn't go well for them today, but when you've got Chris Gill in your team and Paul Sterling, both of them two brilliant players, and Luke Wright as well, and Rohan Mustafa can bat as well, and so he's a good batsman, and so the batting it's just pretty good. And with the bowling attack that they have, that I believe is the best attack in this T10, and you wouldn't really think anyone talking about how good the bowling attacks are in this kind of a format, but compared to especially what I saw in the first game, the Pune Devils were seriously, they just weren't very good. There wasn't anything. They weren't bowling to any kind of I was gonna say plan, but it was really awful. And this is the thing about the teams that haven't really been able to hit their straps in terms of bowling. And if you look at the overs, there are at least 2 or 3 bad balls in every over, and it's kind of thing where there'll be a bad ball, the batsman would like hitting those kind of balls. And so you could say it's a T10 format, and I understand mentally the shorter the format gets, it's a more of an uncomfortable situation for the bowlers. And it actually even happened in Test cricket recently. And the example I'm talking about, which I thought was in the second Test at Old Trafford between England and West Indies. So England had to kind of score quickly in their second innings to get a total that was substantial for West Indies to try and chase. And so West Indies they were playing with time, and in the last 8 overs of the previous day, Joss Butler and Zach Crawley tried to just swing across the line, and Kemar Reach just bowled at the stumps, and they got out. And so it was 37 for 2 after 8 overs. And at that time, you still thought that with the West Indies in that attack, they are test bowlers, and so you still with Kemar Roach especially, you kind of thought, all right, as I said, with this test bowling attack, you kind of thought the wheels were they weren't comfortable with bowling in a way where the batsmen were trying to hit them, but they kind of got away with the fact with just saying, look, if I bowl at the stumps, then he's just going to try and hoik it away. If he misses, I hit the stumps. And so that's what they did. And they got 2 wickets and they got 37 for 2 in 8 overs. So England were at that score at the end of the day's period. And then the next day, Ben Stokes, started with Ben Stokes. So John Campbell dropped Ben Stokes, proved to be very costly because the others actually got out and they couldn't really try and improve the scoring rate. And so Ben Stokes, played brilliantly and got England to a favourable position. And I would say he's the reason why they went in feeling that they'd got enough on the board to really bowl to make sure that West Indies wouldn't get close to the target. And I'm saying all this as a background, but what I really mean is, so there was this one ball that Kemar Roach bowled to Ben Stokes. And so in the next day after the 37 for 2 day, the bowling was getting really scrappy, and it was the fact that the batsmen were trying to attack them was taking its toll on the West Indian bowlers. And especially, Kemar Roach, I mean, just about seeing this in a test match. So you see him kind of bowling mid 80 miles an hour, and then you see this ball, a 65-mile-an-hour long hop that just, if right there for Ben Stokes to clobber into I think it was in the red box thing out in Old Trafford. And especially watching the test match live, you kind of thought, these are bowlers who, when it is a test match, I mean, it's still the same ball, it's a red ball, and when it is a test match, you see how much control they have and what lines they try to bowl just outside the off stump, really test match lines. And the moment, even if it's the same ball that they use, even if it is a test match, even though the fact is everything is there for them, as I said, with the red balls more durable, the ball in England especially can swing for a longer period of time with the attack that the West Indies have got. I saw just before the 2019 World Cup, in that space of 4 years, they had the second lowest bowling average out of all the teams that play Test cricket, and the only team that was ahead of them was South Africa, and so that's understandable. And this just shows that they were kind of the unsung heroes as far as how their attack was going. And so it was very weird to see that. I mean, it's kind of like a phenomenon where with all the things set to the fact that you can just bowl in a test match line and it would still work because you are bowling in a test match, and if you bowl to a high standard in a test match, you will get the rewards. And then they start doing all these weird things like firing it down the leg side, and Jason Holder tried to do that, and as I said, the 65-mile-an-hour long hop from Kemar Roach, who never bowls those kind of balls. And just because their mind frame had changed because the batsmen were trying to really attack them, especially Ben Stokes, and they just couldn't find that kind of mindset that they would have been bowling with if it was just a test match and they knew the batsman was just going to block it or leave it. And I mean, there's especially something in the T10 where it can affect, even the best of bowlers you see in Test cricket, as I said, but I'm saying there are two factors which also affects the inexperienced bowlers, and I'm saying that one of them is, as I said, even the experienced bowlers can it's an uncomfortable mindset to bowl in, but the other one is where it's just, what was I going to say? One is an uncomfortable mindset to bowl in, but the other one is if you have inexperience, and so if you, as I said, the biggest kind of high profile television that they would have been in, and so like for these more unknown commodities, it would be very difficult for them to adapt with this, the mindset that I talked about and the inexperience. There would be a lot of nerves, and so coming up against these West Indian stars who just smash the ball around and have defined the T20 format and will probably define the T10 format even more, it's kind of a graveyard task to walk into, and that's why I do feel very bad for them. And I feel that it's something that it would be better if there were, as I talked about, the advertising where the more like the nations such as Australia, India and England with their fast bowlers can come to the T10, and it would make it more of a challenge. I understand it is a challenge for the batsmen, but the fact is knowing that it's two things. One, it's incredible the level of hitting that they achieve. And if you look at the same situations in a T20 game about the 10 over mark and you think you have to get this many runs at 10 overs, it would be like an impossible situation. But for these people, they back themselves to do it. And even though they haven't had to chase, that much. I mean, actually, no, one team has had to because 120 odd and Maratha Arabians did it. And the thing is it's just something where they have this in the T10. It kind of seems to defy a situation that you think is really, you have to try and think about it more to achieve 120 runs and 10 overs. Whereas in this, 120 runs and 10 overs, they just go and whack the bowlers and do it. And it defies there is an aspect in bowling and batting, and the fact that this whole thing kind of defies cricket, and it's just very surreal to watch. And the second thing is that, if there are more the more prominent fast bowlers, especially, they come and bowl in this league, it would be brilliant because, you look at, as I said, 2 or 3 bad balls every over. And so despite the fact that the batsmen, it's very hard to hit, and they are doing it, which is incredibly difficult, and it shows how, brilliant they are at what they do. But they've also been helped by inexperienced bowling, and even the bowlers who do bowl in it have international experience, but aren't in the international framework for their respective countries. Like Wahab Riaz kind of is, but you look at Mohammad Amir, who for now is retired, Wayne Parnell, Hardest Filion, which is in and out, and he hasn't really been a major feature. And so you look at that and you kind of think that you need some pedigree in bowling to make it more of an even contest. And with the bowlers, the batsmen would also... I'm saying this because you look at the middle orders of a few teams and you kind of think it's a bit undercooked, especially, who is this? The team that Andre Fletcher and Johnson Charles open the batting for. I mean, after them, they're players who you don't know much about, and they're also it seems very undercooked. And that's why I'm saying that if you get some high-profile names who can bolster the middle order, it can really... because if Johnson Charles and Andre Fletcher play their natural game, then they would have confidence as well that T10, as I say, I keep on saying, such a crude format. If you even get out early, you have someone else to come in and play, an aggressive role. And that's what I'm talking about. If you look at the players in India, Australia, and England, obviously, I feel they'd be more suited to the T10, but than India and Australia. But if you look at the fact is that I have two things on this. One, you wouldn't really associate, especially Indian players, with T10. Like if you look at Kohli, for example. But there was a time when he scored 70 of 29 balls in the third T20 at Mumbai when West Indies came to India. And he actually came in at number 4 with not many overs to go. He scored 70 of 29. It was such a brilliant innings, and he smashed Keswick Williams around the place. And it's just that the reason why he was able to do that is because he's mastered his game, and he's, mastered, well, when I say his game, the classical form of the game. And because he's mastered his game and the textbook so well, he knows it inside out, he was able to just purely apply his skills to such a level in any situation. And the fact that he really relished the occasion of going out there and scoring runs at such a quick pace, and in terms of strike rate, out hitting all these big West Indian stars. And so 70 of 29 would definitely out hit the West Indian stars on a good day. I mean, you never know with the West Indies, they may do something ridiculous, but it's just 70 of 29 is absolutely brilliant. And they get the West Indian players and Virat Kohli, they get their runs in different ways. West Indian players, brute power, and Virat Kohli, as I said, just mastering the classical form, like the textbook form of the game, and also mastering his own game. And so simply being able, not simply, but he's able to apply his skills at such a level that he was able to walk out there in a situation that if he had if he had mastered it to a very high level, but not to the level that he has now, like currently, he may have just tried to go down the track and just tried to just swing at a few and maybe a bit frustrated. Whereas he just seemed so, he knew exactly what he was doing, and he wasn't even surprised that he scored the run. Even I wasn't surprised that he scored those runs, because we all knew, and even he knows even more, how much he's mastered his own game and that he can apply his skill to any situation. And so, honestly, if you look at that in T10, 70 of 29 would still be a pivotal knock in a game. And so, him playing that kind of innings, and he would have to play, because if, let's say, if there are the bowlers like Stark and Bumrah who come in, just like hypothetically, you would need players like him along with the West Indian players to really bat, kind of to match up against them. So best bowlers versus best batsmen, and the entertainment would be even more than it is now. And yes, there have been some very good performances, Ansari, but Bangash, who I saw on day one, he scored 50 or 14 balls. I had no idea who he was. And, he's all playing these lap shots of Wahab Riaz, ridiculous shots. And even Graham Swan said after a while, Bangash is now my new favourite cricketer in the world. And I couldn't argue with him, because he was honestly he's probably may even have been mine, and especially at that moment. And honestly, ever since he's played that knock, I still keep on thinking that I didn't even know, no one knew who he was, and he scores 50 or 14 balls, taking advantage of, such a tournament that it's very hard to play in with the adrenaline. And the fact is, batting is still as difficult as it normally is. The whole concept of seeing the ball out of the hand, judging the line and the length and the shot selection, everything. And so with all these hitters, the one thing that is key, and you look at all the entertainment, but the one thing is that they watch the ball like a hawk. And so that's the reason why, because they do that, it enables them to hit the boundaries and us to, enjoy what they do. And yeah, that's on the T10, and there have been some very good performances. Sunil Narayan, I honestly think, yes, we haven't seen much of, it's only been 2 games and you haven't seen much of him with the bat, but his bowling, I would say already, even without, maybe other bowlers coming in, he would be the best T10 bowler that there is. The way he just gets the ball to drift, it's just, he's a cut above the rest. And Deccan Gladiators have him and Imran Tahir in the same team, and so they really can put the, as if the batsmen kind of play well, they can really use those two as, players who can put the brakes on, which is as good as, dot balls are so vital in T10. And Sunil Narayan today gave 1 for, I believe, 14 in his 2 overs. And I can't remember what Imran Tahir's, but his figures are also very good, even though he didn't take a wicket. But he took an excellent catch, and it was Najibullah Zadran, tried to pull one, and Imran Tahir caught one at the boundary, and it was a very good catch. And yeah, it's just the fact that there have been some very good performers, and I just feel like it's such an enjoyable occasion, the T10. And yeah, I just feel that if this was kind of more advertised to the public, and also kind of reaches a status where it would be more prioritized in the cricketing calendar, I feel it would be very good for cricket and very good for the T10. And maybe it would get a backing to really go and make it, to let cricket make its introduction in the Olympics. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and please share this video with your friends. And remember, this is my opinion. What's yours?